All right, in this video, we are going to start editing our Knolling project. I'm assuming that you've already imported your photos and went ahead and added them to a collection. Your collection should be 04 Knolling. Now that we're in our library module, we're going to go ahead and organize our files. So I'm going to go ahead and scroll through them. You'll notice that some of them, because of the camera, the device inside that lets it know if it's horizontal or vertical, sometimes it gets turned around when you are doing a lay flat type photo. If this happens in the library module, you can click on a photo and you'll see these arrows, rotate left or right. So you can rotate them around to correct them. There we go. In these photos, I've left space around my subjects and I can crop in later. Some of them have the floor, which is fine. It makes it actually easier to straighten them out if you have extra space. So what I'm going to do now is scroll through them and then rate them with the best exposure and focus. I can zoom in just by clicking on the photo. And that'll give me an idea how sharp they are. Yikes. That one's pretty sharp. Sharp. All right. So 5s are the ones that are the sharpest. And now what I'm going to do is I can go zoom out, go to rated. I also know that these are raw files because it says CR2. And then I'm going to go to these and figure out which one I like the lighting the best. Some of them have different types of shadows. I sort of like the longer shadows on this one. So I think I'm going to go with this one. So once I've selected my photo, I can now move on to the develop module. In here, I'm going to start off with my basic adjustments. So I can bring my, let's see, oops, Command Z. Let's bring my exposure over a little bit more. And the background is a little darker, so that's going to make more of a mark over here, and that's why it is a little bit darker. I can go here with the highlights and fill some of that in. Bring my shadows over. And I'll notice it's a little darker on this side and the light was over on this side. Before I get to that, let me just do my basic white balance. So I've done some adjustments on my exposure. The first thing I probably should have done is my white balance. So I'm going to go ahead here, click on my selector, and this gray should be generally a neutral gray. If you have something that should be pure gray, black, or white, not like warm gray or cool gray, tan, all those things are going to throw the color off. If you have something that's gray, black, or white in your photo, you can sample it and it will color correct it. So before I had more of a cool cast, and now I'm getting more of a warm undertone to my picture, or neutral undertone. So this gray should read as neutral. So my next step is I'm going to even out my exposure. This looks pretty good. Maybe I'll add a little bit of texture and a little bit of clarity. So now what I'm going to do is take this graduated filter and I am going to click and drag it over. I'm going to turn the mask on. The shortcut is O for overlay. And I'm going to show you what it's affecting. So what it's doing is it's going to do an adjustment over your whole picture and then fade into the image. So instead of here, the default was exposure. Instead of doing +1 exposure, I'm actually going to darken it. And I can get an idea in my preview. I can also tap O for overlay, and I can eyeball it as well. So that's going to give me probably a more even, Command D, a more even exposure. To re-access it, I can just click on it, and then I can try to even it out even more. So that's looking pretty even. It's a little dark on that one side. If I wanted, I could take another gradient And again, it defaults as +1, but maybe I just want to make it a smidgen brighter, so I could lighten it up a little bit and hit done. So let's see my before and after right now. So that was my before. It's a little cool. It's a little bright on the pegs. Here it's a little bit more even overall. And yeah. So the next thing I want to do is then see if I need to straighten the picture or adjust it. So I can go into crop, and I want to make sure that it's pretty even. So I'm just going to bring that in. Notice my lock is locked, so I'm on my original crop. Normally I try to match it to one of these presets. So a 1x1 is a square, you have 8x10, 8.5 by 11, 5 by 7, or 2 by 3 / 4 by 6. These are standard photo sizes, so our eye is more used to seeing these proportions. If you kind of just go crazy and just make up your own proportion, it usually feels a little bit awkward. So I would recommend selecting one of these as your guide. So here I'm going to do a 5 by 7. Here we go, lining that up. In this crop tool, you can also straighten your image, so you can see if you can straighten it out a little bit, like so, by bringing your mouse outside of the box, and you can move it up and down. You can also use the level, so you just click on it and then drag it across something that should be a straight line across. So if that's meant to be a straight line, or I could try it down the middle, like so. If that's supposed to be my straight line, then I hit done. It still looks a little crooked, and I think it is either distortion or I just didn't line them up well. So what we can do now is you can do all sorts of color correction and stuff, but at the very basics, I'm going to go down to transform, and you can try auto. And auto is going to try to correct your image and distort it. So this is before, this is after. You can also go in and do guided corrections where you drag what should be straight lines into here. If you want that to be straight, and then you can also bring in like a vertical, and then the computer will automatically sort of straighten those out. So let's see if we have, this is sort of a before, after, might be a little bit more straight. The last thing is I think I need to recrop it. I think this needs to go a little bit more in the center, like so, hit done, and that's looking pretty good. So once you're done, you can go ahead and export. The last thing we would do is retouch, but I'm going to show you that in a separate video.